Well, everyone, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll get the meeting started. I think I see just about everyone here. Um, Today's November 6th, 2024. As a preliminary matter, Woody Knight, Chair of the Newbury Planning Board, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Pecos,
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy,
Present.
Mary Stone,
Present.
Scott Kinter,
Present.
very good, and Steve Mangian.
Aye.
Hello, everyone. Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kristen Grubbs, Planning Director,
Yes.
and Daniel LaRoe, Assistant Planner.
Yes.
I'd like to welcome Daniel. He's the new Assistant Planner to the town of Newbury. Thanks for joining us.
Daniel, welcome.
Thank you.
You joined a
Appreciate it.
very raucous crowd.
Okay, and anticipated speakers and presenters on the agenda. Please respond in the affirmative. William DeFresco of Newbury Self Storage. You're muted, but I can see you, William. Thank you. Damon from Whiffletree Works Incorporated. I don't see Damon, but I'm sure he'll be joining us soon. TJ Melvin from Millennium Engineering.
Yes.
Green Street. Hi, TJ.
Hi.
And Steve Sawyer, Millennium Engineering, 105 High Road.
Yep, here.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Okay. Good evening. It's November 6th, 2024. Open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the town's website, in which identifies how the public may join. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID number 832-7141-3056, and then entering passcode 108790, or by calling 1-929-205-6099 US and entering meeting ID number and passcode when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees and participants by video and or telephone conference. This meeting is also being broadcast live through local access cable channel 9 on Zoom and at www.tnctv.org. And the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. All right, meeting business and ground rules. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As chair, I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. For all attendees except board members and staff, please remember to mute your computer, mute button, or phone, which is *6, when you are not speaking. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during the public hearing. After board members have spoken, I will afford the public an opportunity to comment and or ask questions. I will see questions and comments through the Zoom raise hand function and take them in the order in which people click on the raise hand function. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So that's out of the way. first thing on the agenda tonight is under appearances and submissions is William DeFrancesco, excuse me. Stowaway Storage, DBA Newbury Self Storage. This is a submission of Form A and plan for approval, not required lot line division at 131 Newburyport Turnpike. And the frontage is on Boston Road. Bill, would you like to explain the purpose of the A&R plan and what you submitted?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. The purpose of the plan is similar to what I did on Route 1, adjacent to my facility, where I've got the bank to release the property, so I want the ability to be able to market the property at some point in the future. There's
Okay.
lot C is what I'm talking about, what we did already. Now we're talking about lot D, where the frontage is on Boston Road, and it's pretty much across the street from the entrance to the dump. Everything on lot B2 down to the right is 99% wetlands down there.
Okay. And yet, Lot C was the one we saw you before on the turnpike, and Lot D is the one we're doing now.
Right, and then the one that I sold to K&R is actually, that may be lot A, I'm not entirely sure.
Yep.
But this is the last thing I could do with the property. The rest of it is wetlands. And then I have some area behind my last building, which is good flat land that we've been processing all the ledge and all the rock for the past number of years right there.
I guess now we'll turn to the board members. Does anyone have any questions? I'll start with Peter. Peter, do you have any questions for
Sure.
Will? William?
Hi, Bill. Is that 2.12 acres?
Let me look at the big plan.
There we go. There we go. Yep.
Yeah, it's 2.12, but if you look to the left, all the way over to the left, there's a I thought there was another plan showing the lot. But there it is right there. You can see the wetlands on lot D. Up in the northeast corner right there.
So it looks to be about a third of wetlands and 2/3 not wetland. Is that about right?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably pretty close.
I think it says it tells you you've got 1.88 acres of upland, right? So I think if you take the 2.12, the 95.5 thousand square feet of total, probably a little bit more of uplands than a third or 2/3.
You, Scott? Any other questions, Pete?
Nope, nothing right now. Thanks.
All right, Larry, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so, Woody.
Okay. Mary, any questions, comments?
Not yet, Woody, thank you.
Okay. And Scott, do you have any comments or questions?
I have no questions, Woody.
Okay, and Steve, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments or questions.
Okay. Well, I'd entertain a motion to endorse the A&R plan, Lot D, titled Plan of Land at 131 Newburyport Turnpike, Newbury, prepared for Stowaway Storage, Newbury LLC, DBA, Newbury Self-Storage by Millennium Engineering on October 8th, 2024.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay. Roll call vote. All those in favor? Peter,
yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes,
and Steve, how do you feel?
It's good by me.
Okay, as chair, I say yes as well. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, the next item on the agenda, liaison meeting reports. We have ZBA. Larry,
Yeah, I really don't have much to report. Unfortunately, I missed the last meeting on October 17th. They did have two special permit applications for property on Plum Island on the agenda, as well as a application for an accessory apartment. None of which are anything that would likely come before our board. So that's really all I have.
and then next liaison report. Thank you, Larry. Next liaison report is Conservation Commission. We had a meeting last night, and two things on the agenda were that may pertain to us were Sunset Club. They're going to be filing a notice of intent, and we'll be seeing from them in the future. And they dropped the order they had for no work, so we'll be seeing them down the road. And then 68 Green Street, they passed on them. They're gonna see conservation at a later meeting because the few things they have to do there have not been done. So they're gonna see conservation at a further date, and they're also on the agenda later on tonight with us. So we'll hear more about that from them. And it's 7:12. Oh, excuse me. We have one more liaison report. MVPC, Kristen?
Yep. Hi, everybody. So the update about MVPC is, as you recall, at a previous meeting, we had invited the transportation planners to our agenda to share a couple regional plans that they've been working on, Vision Zero and the active transportation plan for the region. But we had to ask Elizabeth to come back because the agenda went long. So we had planned for her to come back today. Unfortunately, combination of their schedule and our agenda feeling pretty large tonight, we decided to postpone again. So apologies on that, but I think it makes sense to try to find a time when we can put her first on the agenda if we don't have a public hearing, and have a good discussion about all the transportation work that's going on in the region with a real focus on what's going on locally. So the quick update about local work is, and I may have mentioned this in a planning director's report, but I wanted to just update the public in this at this point as well. They submitted the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission submitted on behalf of a couple towns in the region, including Newbury, for a Safe Streets for All demonstration grant. This is federal highway transportation funding that goes out into the local communities to do demonstration, assessment and survey work, and then actually implementation of transportation strategies that enhance the safety. So the area that's being looked at for this report is, and this project is a section of Elm Street in front of Triton that runs down to the intersection of Elm with School Street, all the way to the exit of the Triton High School property. So it's sort of that whole triangle So some of you may have seen, some traffic counters up on the poles over the last, during the last, fall. They submitted that grant at the end of the summer, and we're supposed to hear by the end of this month if that award, they're feeling confident about it, so I'm hopeful that we'll hear good news about the award, and then we'll be able to have them come back and have more of a discussion. It's 7:15, so I'll wrap it up there.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. As you stated, 7:15, so we'll go to the public hearing. Tonight is a continuance from the October 16th, 2024 public hearing for Whiffle Tree Works. Level 2 site plan review. The nonprofit educational organization use of the barn at 1 Marsh Meadow. As background for the planning board's public hearing tonight, the building commissioner has reviewed the information from the applicant. The applicant is operating a nonprofit educational enterprise, which is a use allowed by right. According to Mass General Law 40A, Section 3. Site plan review is the required method of review. The board will be using the town's zoning bylaw, Chapter 97, Article 9, special regulations to guide this review process. First off, a few administration things. Larry missed the last meeting, and he has reviewed the last meeting, which was 10/18. He reviewed the video and signed the certificate pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, also known as the Mullion Rule, which allows him to continue to participate in the hearing as a voting member of the planning board. And Larry, just so I confirm that you did do this, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Woody, I'll be recusing myself.
Oh, yes, that is correct. Thank you. We'll see you soon, Pete. Under other administration things, the board needs to discuss the consultant fee for the project review. The applicant requested a waiver of the $1,000 fee listed in the site plan review regulations, and the expenses today to $260. Would you like to elaborate on that, Kristen?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's probably an administrative thing, but I just thought it would be helpful for the planning board to know in the regulations, it suggests for site plan review level 2, which this project is, that the applicant submit $1,000 for the fee to cover escrow, as an escrow fund to cover peer review and other peer review engineering and any other peer review. In this case, Damon and I talked, and considering there's no construction on the property, it seemed a little excessive, in my opinion, to that $1,000 would be required for the peer review for this project. So Damon just submitted a written request for that to be waived. As you know, the peer review has completed a few hours of work, so we have an estimate of that work, which is a fee of $260. So I guess I don't know if the board has actually taken a vote in cases like this in the past, but I just wanted to raise it and see if there were any questions and if the board was interested in approving that request to reduce the fee that's required.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
So just to be clear, Kristen, the suggestion is to reduce it from 1,000 to, what was it, $260?
Correct.
Do we need to take a vote on that, or we're just noting that for the record?
Maybe for good practice, just to have a record of it, it would be helpful to have a vote.
All right, today, so, I'd entertain a motion today, that there's a fee of $260 on this matter for peer review.
So moved, Woody.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, but okay, I'm sorry. I do have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Larry.
I just wanted to note that in the draft decision that it reads as a waiver request. The applicant requested a waiver from the level 2 consultant fee described in the site plan review submission requirements and procedures. So that'll just have to be, that language will just have to be amended, and maybe I'm getting ahead of you, but will have to be amended consistent with the vote.
Okay. All right, and then we'll go to roll call vote. Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
No.
no? And Steve, how do you feel? No, Steve's muted.
Muted, Steve.
Here we are. I had a question before the roll call started about whether, if this were approved, does that preclude future peer review fees being assigned to the project?
That's, well, I said to date, so for in the motion, so if there are fees, other fees, peer review fees in the future, before this is closed out, then we'll deal with them then.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
All right, I'll vote yes as well. All right, Damon's with us. Hello, Damon, would you like to, do you have any new information this evening that you'd like to share with the board?
I don't believe anything has changed substantially since the last time we met.
Board members, Mary, Larry, Scott, do you have any questions for Damon?
Not at this time.
Still having right now, Woody.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, are there any new public comments that have been submitted in writing?
There are, Woody, and I also, so I'll mention what those are, and there was an additional submission, as was discussed at the last meeting, the acoustic report by Marshall Jefferson, as the planning board members requested that report be submitted. That came in, that is posted on the website, and the planning board members have received and reviewed that. In addition, there have been 2 public comments since the last meeting. Let's just get those names up. Let's see. EJ Willett, I think this comment came in the night of the last meeting, so I can't remember if I mentioned it. It's dated the 16th, but I don't think I actually received it until the 17th. Letter in support from EJ Willett, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, for Silver Mine Road in Byfield. And a letter from Dan Noonan was received tonight. He's a resident of 283 Main Street in Boxford, runs a company called Shadow Machine, so he's a partial resident locally, and that is something I just received tonight, so I don't have it on the website yet, but both letters have been passed along to the planning board members for review.
We received those. Thank you, Kristen. All right, Are there any members of the public that have any questions or comments? And please limit comments to topics that have not already been addressed. Do we have any raised hands? Didn't see any raised hands?
Nope.
No?
I
Okay.
don't.
Um. So now we'll have to go to the draft decision. In the past, the boards, and to my knowledge anyways, in the past, we keep the public hearing open while we review the draft decision. If that's all right with the board, we'll continue in that manner. Do you have the draft decision you can post for us, Kristen?
How's that?
Yep.
Is that legible?
Everyone's had a chance to see this. Kristen
Yes.
emailed it to us. So if you'd like to walk us through this, Kristen.
Okay,
Um,
do you wanna start at the very beginning?
Sure, let's
Okay.
get through it.
Okay, planning board decision, site plan review approval. This is a draft for this application. So the start of the decision is sort of a cover letter to our town clerk certifying the decision. So we'll fill these pieces in about when the meeting was, the public hearing was held and the discussion. The next section is
Woody,
project.
do you want to take comments as we go, or do you want us to hold them until the end?
I was gonna ask the board, I was gonna let Kristen get through. If anyone has a comment, please speak up as we go through this, please. That's all right, Larry.
Yeah, actually, then I do in the opening here, where it says regarding site plan, I'm sorry, is this appropriate?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go right ahead.
Yeah, where it says site plan review application for minor site improvements. I can understand from a layman's point of view why you might consider these minor, but that language is not consistent with our bylaw. This is considered a phase 2 major modification, so I just take out the word minor.
Sense.
Kristen,
Thank
that's
you,
great.
Larry.
And if anyone has anyone from the board has any comments as we go through this, please speak up.
Nope.
So we struck minor on there. All right, please continue, Kristen. That's all right.
Oops. Trying to get it again. Is that okay for people?
Yeah, it looks good to me, legible.
Okay. So project description, the applicant seeks site plan review approval. Description of the property. Do you want me to read the whole thing, Woody, or can people read along, and I just summarize? What's the
Well,
best?
Everyone on the board's had a chance to review it, so a summary would be fine, Kristen.
Okay,
And like I said, if anyone on the board has anything to note or change or questions or comments, just please speak up as we go through it.
so this is a description of the property. It includes some information about the land area, the structures on the property, previous decisions that have established the lot. Originally in the open space subdivision, let's see, mentioning that the applicant is proposing to lease the headquarters. The owner of the property is the Elena M. Jesperson Trust. And then a little more detail about the actual proposal of this application, which is related specifically to the parking area to accommodate the use of the barn by Whiffletree Works nonprofit programming. So this information is from the plan that was submitted as part of the application. 6 active parking spaces on the back side of the barn, 2 new handicapped accessible parking spots near the entrance to the barn, additional parking on the barn property. And then I mentioned the additional parking that's been proposed on the balance of the Jesperson's property, although that is not specifically on this lot. And then the last bullet is that there are no further improvements, no changes to the barn structure, no new lighting, signage, grading, or new land disturbance. I'll just pause there to see if there are any comments on that.
Pretty straightforward.
If everyone's comfortable with it, Kristen, you can continue.
So the next section is procedural history. So this just walks through the process of review by the planning board according to the submission requirements and procedures. There was a pre-application meeting for the plan. The department chiefs reviewed the plan with the applicant. There was follow-up site visits by the police and fire. And during the hearing, as you all know, because we're still in the middle of it, the applicant has introduced, some additional materials which have been reviewed, and the public has been invited to comment in writing and also in person, well, on Zoom, by personal comment during the meetings. And additional, the planning board had a site visit on the property in September. No, any questions on that? The next section is submitted materials and information. Thank you to Daniel for helping pull all this together. It's nice to have another set of eyes to review all the plans and materials. So this is simply a list. This doesn't need to be highlighted anymore, but I wanted to be sure that in particular the public was aware that these materials were submitted on Monday. I'm sorry, it was Monday. That should be the 4th.
Yep.
Well, that's, Kristen, that's where the draft decision I have has the waiver request following that, but it seems to be missing from the one that's on the screen.
Yep, I guess that's a question I had. I wasn't sure since that seemed to be an administrative part of the application procedures rather than something that's in the bylaw. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate to list that here.
Now that you say it, you probably don't need it in the decision.
Okay.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I think I originally had thought that was in the bylaw, but it is, just to clarify what I just said, it's actually in the application procedures and regulation, which is not a part of the zoning bylaw. Steve, do you have a question on that?
Actually, item number 13 in the list about the acoustic report. And I was wondering whether the well-written report we got from Marshall Jesperson, is a good report. But is that at the level of science professional report writing that is typically accepted by the board? Or, sound has been an issue for some of the abutters, as I recall. And I'm wondering whether this report from Marshall meets the usual standard for the board. I don't know, so I'm asking for conversation.
Well, as a, we don't have any, noise ordinance bylaw in town. Am I correct about that, Kristen?
Correct.
So the acoustical report was Marshall, he said he put one in, they did one themselves, and please speak up, Damon, if I say anything out of line, out of order here, but I believe Marshall was volunteering their acoustical test and for the public and for the board to read, and with the no noise ordinance in line, we'll just, I assume we'd just take the acoustical report and have it in the record.
Yeah, we were never trying to present a sound engineer's sort of report. It was just for general information using the technology we had available. As I understand, the sound drops or decibels drop as the cube root of distance, and we were just trying to show how that actually functions in a space like the barn. So it's not a definitive scientific report. It's to help everyone understand the sound and what the sound does in that on our location.
Thank you, Damon. Anything else, Steve?
No, I appreciate the conundrum of not having a sound and noise standard in the town. And there we have it. It seemed to me we might still be putting undue reliance on the report. And I don't know whether there's some language, which I cannot come up with at the moment, that would just reflect that this does not set a precedent for the kind of information that the board might want in the future. Again, I think it's useful, but I don't think it should be viewed as definitive. But with that, I defer to the board.
I'll note the comment. It was a volunteered from Marshall. It was a test that they did on site, so it was information that they volunteered.
Yeah, maybe it's a question for, and thank you for that, Steve. I think I had the same comment or concern last time we met on this, but I do think that certainly don't want to. I mean, we don't have no noise ordinance. There could be precedent. I think we maybe potentially just reach out to town council and just get a check on that, Kristen.
So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what we're checking on. This list here is just a submission of materials that were submitted to the board. And this in particular was at the request of the board. So in terms of just naming it here, that's what's intended. I think Steve's question is a different one, which is the board comfortable with using this as guidance, I guess, and considering the questions that have been raised in the hearing previously about noise. And
I think when you submit a report, you typically have something to measure the results in that report too. Requirement, just decibel requirements. So seeing that we have none, I'm not sure it's even necessary to be in the decision, let alone the additional submissions. So that was really my point is, does it really need to be here? I'm not too sure. I don't think so.
Well,
Again, I just
it
would
was-
say it's not, I'm happy to ask town council about it and I will do that. I would just say, this isn't making any determination about the type of material it is. It's just listing that it was a submission. So it's sort of in the board's hands to interpret how you feel about the submission, which you requested.
Okay, I was just a suggestion. I mean, if you're confident, I'm confident.
No, I mean, I said I'm happy to ask about including it here. I'm happy to check on that. Mary, you have your hand up too.
No, I don't know what that is, actually.
Oh,
No, it's there,
lower
but
your hand.
mm,
Okay, so Kristen will note just to ask town council if it's okay to have the submission in the list of submissions for this decision.
Right.
Yep,
And-
happy to do that.
Woody, if I may, perhaps we can ask town council to see how that submission is addressed in the findings that come in the next section. Or, acknowledge that this report was submitted, but we don't find that it does, it's not a formal okay stamp or okay approval that we're getting from this submittal. And maybe there's some language that town council could come up with that acknowledges that we got the acoustic report. But in terms of the findings, it's not something that bears significant weight in the decision-making.
No, it was just something that Marshall had mentioned. It was something that they did. It was something that Marshall submitted to his report, and I don't see it as it weighing in on the findings. It's just listed here as additional submissions. So I mean, really, what we're asking town council is irrelevant to the decision, other than it was submitted. That's my opinion, but if that makes sense.
If I may, Woody,
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
the additional submissions does not mean that you're taking it as law or guidance. It is simply material that was submitted. It's like all the letters that come in. They're not telling you what to do. They're not law. They're people's opinions, and this is clearly not done as acoustic engineers, nor was it presented that way. It's just a submission of trying to look at that issue that was raised. So in the process that I've been involved with some of the zoning things in the past, it's just a submission. It's not setting a precedent, as Steve said, or anything like that. It's simply a letter that you guys requested.
I agree with you, Damon. I don't see the need for town council to review it, but that's me. Would you, if no one else has further comments, would you like to continue, Kristen?
So the findings, these are the decision criteria of site plan review as set forth in the zoning bylaw as referenced here. The proposed plan requires no cutting and filling, requires no removal of trees, displaces no wetland vegetation, will result and no soil erosion, no new air and water pollution. Will not increase traffic congestion. Conditions have been placed related to traffic and parking. And those conditions come later. We'll get to those. The proposed plan requires no removal of existing stones. And this conditions have been placed related to future modifications to stone walls on the site. That also will come later, but that refers to the historic building restriction that's already on the barn. That historic building restriction has discussion of whether there can be any modifications to the stone wall on the property. So this is referencing a decision that was made decades ago. The proposed plan does not modify the property and therefore provides adequate stormwater management and other utilities. The proposed plan provides adequate safety for pedestrians and vehicles both on the site and entering or exiting it. Conditions are described below. It's maybe worth mentioning that the site is this particular lot that the barn is located on, which is accessed off of Marsh Meadow Lane. So when it talks about entering or exiting it, it's entering or exiting from Marsh Meadow Lane onto the barn property. And there's some conditions related to pedestrian and vehicle safety below. So there's adequate access to the barn for fire and emergency service equipment. As you recall, both police and fire have been on the site with their equipment. The proposed use of the barn will not impact scenic views from publicly accessible locations. There are no changes to the barn, so the views will not change. The proposed project minimizes visual intrusion, by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, or other outdoor service areas from public ways. This is the language in the zoning bylaw. The comment is made that Marsh Meadow Lane is a private way, so it's not actually located on a public way. Those are still considerations the board has discussed, however. The proposed project minimizes intrusion of glare from headlights and site lighting on surrounding properties. Conditions regarding hours of activity and lighting have been placed on the proposed use to minimize the impact on adjacent residential properties. Should I pause there? We've got a few more, but I don't know if there are any questions related to what so far.
Everyone comfortable? We'll continue.
Sure.
We'll continue, Kristen, please.
Okay. The proposed project has no departure from the character, materials, and scale of buildings in the vicinity. Again, the barn isn't proposed to change by this application. And then reference again to the building restriction agreement that's already in place. The proposed project prevents contamination of groundwater from any source. The parking will be on grass or gravel. In the event of any contamination from a vehicle, the applicant would follow the same guidelines as would anyone at their property.
Can we stop
regarding-
there for a sec?
Sure.
Yeah, the proposed project prevents contamination of groundwater. Seems a little strong to me. It kind of implies that, I don't know, they're doing something more. I'd be more comfortable if it read the proposed project does not present a risk of contamination of groundwater.
That makes some sense to me, but I don't know if anyone else on the board wants to discuss that.
Larry, I think that's a better change, better wording.
Can you say it again, Larry? I'm gonna.
Yeah,
I
and take
gotta
out the
go.
word prevents.
Yeah,
And substitute does not present a risk of contamination of groundwater from any source. Yeah, got it.
Everybody comfortable with that?
Makes sense.
Okay. With that notation,
that's
move on.
helpful. Thank you.
thank you,
There
Larry.
are no new proposed site improvements other than defining the new parking areas on the ground. This is related to the existing improvements blend in with the natural surroundings and enhance the character of the area as viewed from public ways and places. The proposed project,
Excuse me, on the site improvements, and maybe this is just very, very minor, but there will be a restroom next to the entrance of the barn. And you did mention really a screened in, whether it's a fence, two sides. Would that be classified as a site improvement? If it was a fence?
I'm sorry, is it okay to respond, Woody?
Sure. Respond, Dan, please.
My understanding of the bylaws that it is addressing permanent changes. The bathrooms would be temporary and seasonal and come and go. So I didn't think it qualified for site improvement, but I'm also not on the planning board and I don't do these things, so.
so
Well, I wouldn't
there,
think the restroom or the porta john, it's mobile, you'd be pulling it in and out, seasonal. But I was only thinking that if you were gonna screen that, porta john, that would be more of a permanent, whether it's, two sides of, two fence, and some posts. So it was just a question really to Kristen.
Sorry then.
no, it's great you brought it up, Scott, and thank you, Damon. That was my thinking as I was pulling the findings and conditions together, is that because it wasn't a permanent site improvement as part of the application, it wasn't included here, but there is a condition a little bit later on that talks about the impermanent addition of restroom facilities, porta potty on the property. So I think it is, it is a question that we should clarify with you, Damon. I think you just helped clarify that to me. So we can see if this language works for everybody. I can fast forward to that, or I can just finish these items.
I think we can finish. I think Helen might have a question.
Yeah.
I can't see. Is there a raised hand?
Yep.
There is. It's Helen
Hi,
Martoccia.
it's Helen Matacha, 24 Orchard Street. So, just my only comment in terms of some of these items is that because the applicant does not have any real business plan as to what he's doing in terms of understanding activities. There's proposed frequencies, but there's nothing, there's no schedule, there's no, nothing yet. So I don't understand, I'm not really sure that anything can be considered temporary yet. And it's because based on the size of the event that he's going to have, or potential the size of the event, it's maybe not one porta potty, it could be more than one porta potty. So I think there's a lot of stuff that can't be considered concrete or really be known at this point, personally. That's just my own opinion.
Okay, thank you. You want to continue, Kristen, please?
So I think we were on letter L. The proposed project minimizes the impacts of the use on adjacent properties, conditions below. discuss hours of operation. And the proposed project complies with the provisions of Newbury zoning bylaw. The property is in the residential agricultural zone. A nonprofit educational use is allowed by right.
Kristen, some of what is in L, again, loops back to the fact that we don't have any bylaw regarding noise. So a statement like L that says that the proposed project minimizes seems like something that may or may not be warranted. And I'm thinking back to the site visit where there was some discussion about on the abutters properties to the west, I guess, of the barn, there had been some vegetation which formed a good sight line and potential lighting break. And I thought we talked a little bit about whether there might be some more vegetation going back in there to minimize any potential lighting back there. So I think L seems a little bit strong, given some of the uncertainty with noise and lighting that could come in the future. As was pointed out, there's not a business plan per se for this operation, so that things can be could become more extensive than we're anticipating. And that's
Well-
why I think that to say that the project minimizes the impacts needs a little tweaking.
Well, there was no nighttime activities presented here in this, but in Damon's presentation. And so as far as the vegetation concerns, if there's no nighttime activities, there won't be any headlights shining through where that vegetation was missing. And if there's a proposed nighttime activity, Damon's gonna come before the proper channels to change that, and that would be in a future decision. That's my opinion, but Kristen and Damon have anything to say, please speak up.
Again, I seem
I
to recall during,
just, can I just answer it, Steve?
Yeah.
I think it may be helpful for the discussion to hold on to these thoughts and questions and review the conditions and then see how they work together. That's just a possible approach to thinking about whether this language is the best.
it seems
for-
reasonable.
Okay, we'll continue then, and if anyone has any comments, please note them, and we'll get through the decision here and speak up at the end. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, conditions of approval. Site plan is provided for the applicant, refers to the nonprofit organization, which shall have use of the property by lease from the owner of the property, Elena M. Jesperson Trust. The approval and conditions of the approval apply solely to Whiffletree Works. So that's just to clarify that the applicant is Whiffletree Works. If Whiffletree Works disappears, there's no, this decision does not apply to anyone else using the barn. That's my understanding. The site design development drawings were prepared for Whiffletree Works and they're attached to the decision, incorporated as Exhibit A. So that seemed appropriate to include as an exhibit to the decision because it defines those parking areas that were described in words earlier. The site plan approval by the planning board shall not be construed as approval from any other board, commission, official, or department. So in the cases that an activity on the property requires something from the Board of Health or something from the building inspector or something from the select board, that's all still needs to be attended to. So hours of operation, letter D. Whiffletree Works classes, programs, and any public events held at the property shall be limited to daytime hours due to the lack of adequate exterior lighting on the site and the desire to minimize the impact of headlights on abutting residential properties. In no case shall Whiffletree Works activities at the property be held after sunset. So that may be worth discussion to decide if that feels appropriate. Letter E, months of operation. The barn on the property is currently a 3-season space. As such, Whiffletree Works programs shall not be held at the property during the winter season. Modification of the property to allow for winter use will require a new application to the board to assure that all public safety requirements are met and other site modifications are made. A little background on this, when there was discussion of snow storage in particular, and whether it was adequate for public safety equipment getting around the barn if there was a lot of snow. So this is to address that issue in particular. Programming. I don't necessarily know that this needs to be said, but all programming at the property shall be required to adhere to any and all building code and public health restrictions and licenses. So for instance, if there was going to be food on the property, like a food truck, you'd have to talk to the Board of Health, etc. The current barn has an occupancy limit of 99 people. The barn does not currently have bathroom facilities or water. Proposed use does not include offering food or alcohol. Informational and marketing materials about the programs should state that there are no bathroom facilities on the site. This was a recommendation from the health agent. If the applicant provides a temporary porta potty for programs or events, it should be handicapped accessible and be situated so as to have no conflicts with the historic building restriction. So that language was to address the fact that the restriction, the building restriction discusses changes to structures on the property. And this is whether they're temporary or permanent. G, lighting. There shall be no new permanent lighting installed on the barn or on the property. Any new lighting to be installed shall require the applicant to return to the planning board for review and approval. This would be as a modification. Probably.
That seems a bit extreme, you know, if we want to put a new light outside the farmhouse, I don't think we should have to come to the planning board to do that. I think that's going a little too far, but it's up to the planning board.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. So that just for everyone's benefit, the property includes the barn and the abutting farmhouse, which is on the same lot, but not part of Whiffletree Works. So that may need to be addressed.
I'm reading it again. Do you have any thoughts, Larry, as to
I'm
Wording
sorry, I was actually distracted for a minute there. So we're talking about G lighting, right?
yes,
There shall be no new permanent lighting installed on the barn or anywhere on the property. Is the concern because of there's a residence on the property? Is that it?
Yes. And it also would mean that we couldn't put in a permanent light inside the barn. It seems a bit extreme to me to say that we can't change lighting on the property at all. So that's my concern. It seems a little heavy-handed to me.
I see your point. There shall be no new permanent exterior lighting installed on the barn, period. Would that work?
I think that's acceptable, yes.
How everyone feels about that?
That's, if David thinks that's all right, and I think that's all right, so. Anyone else have?
Good.
Everyone's good with that? Okay, we can move on. H,
Landscaping, should the stone wall behind the barn need to be modified to assure public safety and space for adequate snow storage, the applicant shall be required to return to the planning board for review and approval. Again, I think this mostly relates to the fact that the building restriction already would require discussion around moving the stone wall. That's already a restriction that exists, so it's just kind of a reminder, I guess, probably duplicative.
I'm not sure if the initial one does apply to that stone wall because it was built after the renovation. So it's not a historic stone wall, it's a modern stone wall. But it's in either case, I'm happy to come back. I just wanted to point out that that stone wall is not historic.
Thank you, that's helpful, actually. And again, just, I think the date on that restriction is, do you recall, Damon, when the historic building restriction was?
I think it was 09, but it
Okay.
may, let's see. Yeah, somewhere in that range. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. I might have the file handy if you want me to look it up.
No, that's okay, that's just helpful, that the language in the decision is related to the historic structures and landscaping, so. Let's see, we are to letter I. In all cases, noise resulting from Whiffletree Works activities on the property shall minimize impact on abutting properties. Entertainment shall only be permitted pursuant to an entertainment license issued by the select board. That is language that's been used by the planning board in other decisions. But happy to have the board discuss whether that's appropriate. J, all parking on the property shall comply with the zoning bylaw, general parking and loading requirements. In the case of events that are anticipated to use more than the parking spaces located on the property at 1 Marsh Meadow, the applicant shall consult with and follow the requirements of the police department and public works department regarding the need for traffic control officers, parking monitors, and any additional signage. In Whiffletree Works materials, the public shall be reminded that there shall be no parking on Orchard Street for events or programs. So again, just to define, there's parking proposed on the property, and then the site plan showed parking along Marsh Meadow Lane or overflow parking down on the horse barn, Even Stride property. That's the distinction here between the parking. Letter K, from time to time, the planning board may enter and inspect the premises subject to this decision to assure that any work done on the site is in conformity with the site plan. This is standard language in every site plan decision. Recording of a certificate of the town clerk and the decision shall be required at the Registry of Deeds. The applicant shall provide the planning board with written confirmation of approval by the building commissioner following establishment of the accessible parking spaces. No programs shall be held before inspection and approval by the building commissioner is complete. Oh my gosh, we got 2 more. Modifications. Any modification to the approved site plan will require planning board approval. Requests shall be submitted in writing and subject to review. And then the duration of approval, site plan approval shall lapse after 2 years from the date of issuance, not including time required to pursue or await determination of an appeal. This is also standard language. Again, in most cases, there's some kind of construction that's actually happening, and that's the lapse language related to this. I wasn't actually sure, and I haven't had a comment from town council yet about whether this language is appropriate. And I wanted to get some input from the planning board on that. Maybe Larry in particular, if you have any thoughts on that.
No, let's see something. I think that's actually out of the statute, isn't it? You're gonna have town council review this?
Yeah, I think that in particular, I have questions about.
I just defer to town council, but I'd like to go back to N modifications for a minute. Any modification of the approved site plan will require planning board approval. Requests for modification shall be submitted to the board in writing and shall, in most cases, be subject to the same submittal review and hearing procedures as was the original filing. But it doesn't really define when it might not be required. And to put it another way, there are no provisions in here for field modifications or minor modifications that sometimes the board will vote on. Seems to me that in the Governor's Academy Presby decision, we had some language like that, didn't we? That defined field changes or minor modifications. Because I know we have on a couple of occasions had to vote on whether something constituted a minor modification that did not require a public hearing.
Yeah, I don't recall specifically, but I agree. I have seen that kind of language in other decisions, and that's certainly the practice of the board. In many cases, there's a discussion with the applicant about the proposed modification at a public meeting, and then the board determines whether it's a minor modification, which would not require a new public hearing, or in some cases, a major modification, but which would require the public hearing. So I can look for that language.
There might even be some language in that in 105 High Road decision. I know we've seen it before. I couldn't give it to you off the top of my head, but.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's noted. And we did O.
That's it,
That's it. Very good.
except
All
for
right, so-
signatures.
Yep. I'll ask the board if they have any comments or questions. Anyone else other? And thank you, Larry, for yours. Hearing none. I guess I'll ask the board what their wishes are. Do we? The options really are, do we vote on this decision this evening? Do you think that we need to continue this?
Well,
Council's
if we're
gonna
going to submit it to town council for review, I don't think we can vote on it tonight.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing.
So moved.
The next meeting, next
If-
meeting.
I might interrupt, Woody.
Yes, go ahead,
Um,
David.
In the past, we have, when I was on the select board, we approved things based on that town council found them legal. So since I'm moving up against the time when it's very hard to work in the ground and I'd like to put in those 2 handicap parking spaces, I would like to request that you guys consider at least approving it pending town council's agreement with the changes and modifications you've proposed. Thank you.
That being said, if everyone's comfortable with Damon's request, I'd entertain a motion to vote on this decision pending. And town council can review our changes that we've made this evening.
So moved, Woody.
Do I have a second?
So what? Maybe just a little more clarification on the motion.
The motion, my motion, well, it's not my motion. I was entertaining a motion to approve this decision based on our changes, if everyone's comfortable with our changes. And Damon's comment was that he'd like us to approve the decision, vote on the decision so he can get to work on the handicap spaces. And if pending, we'd vote on the decision with a motion. And if town council weigh in on our changes, if we had to come back, we'd come back. If town council has any problems with any of the changes that we've made.
We've done that before for, things like homeowners association documents and legal documents. I don't know if we've ever done it on a decision, final decision. Damon, what's involved with the handicapped parking spaces? Just some gravel?
Yes, it's just gravel, but once the ground is frozen, who knows if winter's actually going to show up. But, trying to move earth around in the winter is more challenging. And so if I could, I'd love to get it done sooner than later. If I can't, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I shouldn't speak, I'm not speaking for the building commissioner, but I mean, I don't see why you couldn't go ahead and do it anyway. It'd be done at risk, but I mean, it's pretty minimal risk. The only risk would be that if we came back and wanted you to move the handicapped parking spaces.
Yeah, I think, having seen the decision, I'm more comfortable moving forward with an at-risk situation. I'd love to have it finished and say, yes, this is where we're going. It is at risk, like you said. So either way, I'm fine. I just thought I'd put the request out there.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. Respect it, but I'd be a little reluctant for a final decision. It's one thing if you were sending a deed or something else to town council for review, but the final decision, we should have the final document in front of us before we vote on it. It's my opinion anyway.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I'll accept a motion to continue this hearing to our next scheduled meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
okay, all those in favor, Larry?
Yes, just to clarify, that would be 7:15 p.m.
Yes.
On
So continue the public hearing till 7:15 p.m. on
November 20th.
November 20th of this year.
Okay.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Steve, how do you feel?
I'm good, but I note the raised hand of Helen.
That's okay. I
Okay.
just have, you can wait. I just had a question if the decision was available for review after this meeting, that's all.
I vote yes as well, and Kristen, is the decision available for review? Where would Helen find that?
I don't know if the planning board's comfortable with that. I certainly feel that would be fine, considering we've just reviewed it during a public meeting. It would be marked draft, I guess, but I don't know if the board is comfortable with that.
Larry, in the past, what have we done?
I don't know if we've been on it, but I have no problem with it.
Okay. So I guess Helen, contact Kristen, I guess, if you'd like to
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Get a copy of it.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Damon, for your time. Getting through this. And we'll see you on
Thank
the
you
20th.
guys for the consideration and your service.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next thing on the agenda. New business, 105 High Road, Seagate. I believe we have Steve Sawyer here.
Yeah, hello,
Mhm. Yep,
hello,
Okay.
Steve Sawyer here. I
Yep.
believe Maggie, I think Maggie DePiro's on, I think Ben Perez is on also. I think Matt Gaines, the attorney, might be with us tonight too. The plan here is what we're asking for tonight is for a reduction in the bond held. We had asked for 193,000, it to be actually be reduced to 26,374. I will say that Maggie and Ben have done a great job. It's really come together out there. So the paving, final paving's done, landscaping. I think when Joe was out, the shell drive and parking for the open space was delivered but not spread. It's currently spread. Unfortunately, they delivered. I think they ordered 30 tons, and 90 tons got delivered. So there's a couple piles that will be brought out. Right now, Ben and Maggie are waiting for the pavement to set up a little better. It was just paved Monday, so they didn't want heavy trucks driving on it for a couple days, so they'll pull that out of there. The trail's all set out in the rear, I believe. Actually, Kristen walked it with us a while back, about a month or so ago. The open space here has been cleared, hydroseeded. It looks great. If you'd like, I can share pictures. It's up to the board. I do have pictures of the recently completed road, and that's, let me know if you'd like to see them.
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
You can share the
All right.
pictures. We've been on a sidewalk there before, but you're showing us things that weren't finished prior when we were on a sidewalk.
All right. So I'll just, can everyone see?
Yes.
All right, so I'll just work our way down. This is at the entry, the wall, curbing, the original house on the right. And as you work your way down around the corner, the curve around down into the property, the finished homes, landscaping, all complete, finished paving. And as we hook around to the cul-de-sac at the end, you can see the banding, the cobble banding's complete. Landscaping. I think it really came together. It looks great. In the island with the cobble banding on the inside. And as we work our way down the seashell drive for the public access in the rear. This is turning around, looking back up the road. So all of the homes are framed in with two left with just interior work. I believe probably one should be complete in a week or so, probably within 1 or 2 weeks, and then the last one, 9, is probably a couple months out. Then this is just the parking area with the wood rail. So yeah, so there was an over delivery here. We're gonna have to pull some of those piles out and bring off site. I think they're coming either the end of this week or early next week to pull that out of there. And I think that's it. And this is just looking out back. So the open space here has been hydroseeded. There is some growth, but given how it's been so dry, it's been plenty warm, but it's been a little dry for real hardy germination. But we'll get some this fall, and then it'll fully germinate and be really germinate and have a healthy lawn in the spring. And I think that is it. So, with that being said, we're asking the board, I guess, so Joe had asked to increase because the shells weren't spread. We were requesting that 21,454 be held for the work, and he recommended 26,374 be held. I don't know now, with the picture documents that the shells have been spread. But I guess it's up to the board to decide of how to handle that. So that what we're looking for, release, what we've asked for is $198,862 in bond release. And Joe, with Joe's reduction of, actually it was 4,920 asked to add to the being held for 193,906 would be if you agreed with Joe's assertion to hold that additional amount.
Okay. And you're also just asking the request for release of just lot 3, correct?
Well, actually, right now, actually, I think at this point I'll have Ben and Matt come in. I know it sounds as if it may be lot 9 is under agreement. I think they might be they're hoping probably to have both lots released at this point. But I guess Ben, number one, which house are you looking for the release on for the C of O?
Like right now, we actually just got lot 9 under agreement as of today, so that would be the next one to close. Lot 3 is closer to completion, but we do not have it under agreement yet, but I anticipate that changing very soon. So as you just stated, I'd like to see both lots released.
And I do know that Matt Gaines has been working through, the CR, I believe, is complete. It's not recorded. I think it was in, it might have been tied up in review at the town level for a while, but I believe we're at a point now where we can close it out. We do have to do the bench line report, now that the open space is complete. We can do that report. I believe that gets filed with the CR. I don't know, Matt, maybe you can chime in.
Yeah, so just to kind of correct a little bit what Steve said on the CR. So we had submitted it to the town originally in, I think it was like March of 2023. They turned it around pretty quickly with some comments. We then submitted it to the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, and again, something like March or April of 2023. As is typical, they took many months to get back to us with their comments. But recognizing, that the delay wasn't on us, the town did keep issuing certificates of occupancy because we had the kind of the placeholder of the declaration of restrictions out there. Finally, the state got back to us a little less than a year ago in December of 2023 with their comments. We, on our end, kind of pretty quickly reviewed them and sent them to the town in, again, December 2023, maybe January 2024, right around that time. And I was following up with the town quite a bit initially, and then it was silent. And we finally, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, so almost 10 or 11 months later, finally did get comments back from the town. Not a lot, they seem fine. And there's one or two or three things that came from the town that we need to, kind of close the loop on, and Steve is working on that, and hopefully we'll, get those couple of items buttoned up soon. And then once that happens, it then needs to go back to the state, because again, the state made a whole bunch of changes. They asked us to make some changes and to, input some new provisions. So obviously they're going to want to see that. So we need to submit it, excuse me, back to the state. Hopefully we can get that done in the next couple of weeks. And then again, I don't know how long the state is going to take. Hopefully not as long as the first time, because it's not their initial review. It's really just looking at the edits, and we accepted, I think, everything they asked for and added everything they asked for. But again, we're kind of at the mercy of the state. So as Steve and Ben indicated, there's 2 units or lots remaining, unit 3 and unit 9. We have 9 under agreement. We don't have 3 under agreement yet. That's been indicated. The hope is to get it under agreement soon. I think the goal in terms of like when we would be closing on lot 9, Ben, or you can chime in, but I think we're looking maybe February or March. Is that correct? You're on mute, Ben.
Yeah, you're muted.
Just realized I was muted, sorry. Maggie might have the date more accurate than I do, but it's around that ballpark, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so for lot 9, we'd be looking to close in, as I said, February or March. Again, lot 3 isn't under agreement, but it's my understanding it's actually more complete than 9. So if we happen to get 3 under agreement soon, that closing might be, before then. So the short answer is we are going to be looking for lot releases or certificates of occupancy, I should say, for both 3 and 9, sometime between, say, December 1 at the earliest, and not probably later than March 1 or around that time. I fully expect that obviously we will get the CR back to the state. Well, probably, as I said, in the next couple of weeks. I just don't know when the state's going to approve it. And my concern is that pretty much none of the holdups on this have been in our court. We submitted it, quickly to the state, and then they sat on it. When we got it back, we submitted it to the town, and then the town took 10 months to get back to us. So I just don't want, any certificates of occupancy to be held up when, again, these delays haven't really been on, my client's end. So I guess the short answer is there's not an ask at the moment because we're not ready for a CO, but it is likely that one, if not both of the COs will be requested prior to the state finalizing the CR, unless they move very quickly, which I'm not optimistic on that.
Okay,
So you are or are not requesting one CO tonight, one release?
Well,
Well-
I think,
Sorry,
okay,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, yeah, well, I think definitely we absolutely want to have either, I don't know if it be worded that at least one in case unit 3 is, somebody comes in this week and wants to buy and close on it shortly. We absolutely
Yeah.
want at least one release for
Yeah,
either 3 or
I
9.
guess, we're not applying, I guess, let me clarify, because we're not applying for a CO because we're not ready to apply for a CO. But when that time comes, whether it's in the next 3 weeks or 2 months, we would like the town to say, yes, you have done everything within the permit to warrant the issuance of a CO. So if that is saying we want a release of it, then I guess that's what we're asking, for at least one.
Kristen, do you have a review of the peer review letter from Joe? What his recommendations were?
Sure. Yeah, just take me a minute. Did it come up? Or no, not yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have it if need be. Oh, there we go.
So Joe's letter addresses the first question, which is the request for the reduction of the bond. I think Steve, explained that some of this has been completed since Joe's review. He does mention the as-built plan is listed as 20% complete. That I think that 20% is about $1,000. So otherwise, this just reiterates what Steve described earlier.
What would your recommendation be, Chris? And does anyone, before I ask you that, does anyone on the board have any questions? At this time?
Woody, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Pete. Thank you.
Could we stop screen sharing, Steve, for a sec? Or actually, could you go to the beautiful image that you had? And I appreciate where you're at with this project. It is looking really, really slick. The image I'm curious about is looking down to the public way where the material was just placed. So it's as you're just looking down.
Okay, hold on a sec.
Might be like the 5th one down, I think.
Let's see, I think it's this way.
Yeah, you want to go back maybe to one more? Yeah, right
That
there.
one.
Perfect. Good, good, good. Yeah, I just wanted to see if there was something to protect those gas fixtures. And it looks like some stones were put there just in case you get any drivers that
Yep.
bump into that. So that's great. And the second is, do you have any images of lot 9? Because, we had a lot of discussion about lot 9 and how that was, that wall worked out and the barrier and all that sort of stuff. Because I didn't see one.
I do not, I do not, unfortunately, but that's actually all landscape. The wall's built. It really actually came out it looks great. And
Yeah, that'd be nice to see. Cool.
yeah, hold on a sec. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. So you can see that there's a tree. So lot 9's kind of tucked in behind that tree on the right there. And there's arborvitae's running up so that the wall is it's just tucked around the corner there. Yeah, I was taking more pictures. It's just to document the road completion
Gotcha.
and such.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks very much, Steve.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Kristen, what would your recommendation be here as far as Joe's report and everything on this matter?
I think it's up to the board. I mean, I'm comfortable with the request they've made. I think if you want to reduce it $1,000 because of that as-built, you could. I'm not sure that's super relevant, but up to you all.
Woody?
Yes, Larry?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to reduce the bond amount to $26,374. Which
So
is what
second.
Joe recommended.
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call vote, Larry?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Mary? We lose Mary? I guess we lost Mary. And Steve's not present either, and I vote yes as well. As far as the request for release of lot 3, does anyone have motion?
I would just
Uh,
ask that we not make it a specific number in case it ends up being 9 in first before 3.
Yes, I apologize.
No problem.
We had a request for lot 3 on the agenda, so. Is there a motion to release a lot, both lots, or no lots at this time?
Woody, I'd be happy to make to release one lot, and probably the most pertinent would be the one that's under agreement.
So lot 9. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mary, is she back with us? No. Steve, how do you feel?
I'm okay with that.
And I vote yes as well. So we've released a lot. We've reduced, but released the money requested. So I think that's it. Do you don't have anything else, do you, Kristen?
Well, I guess I just want to make a comment that on behalf of the town, we apologize for the delay. We're here now. Daniel, our new assistant planner, is on this call. For those of you who haven't met him yet, Daniel LaRoe. I'm very familiar with CRs. I've done a lot of this kind of work in the past, so I'm very interested in moving it along and getting it done. I would say that includes the baseline documentation. It includes some of the devil in the details that there can be with restrictions. I also know there's some outstanding work with the Conservation Commission regarding the wetland mitigation. So, if we all just keep charging ahead, I feel confident we can and get you guys there. And I think things are looking really good. And I think it would be really exciting to get that open space open to the public before the snow flies, because it's going to be beautiful out there. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
I did drive down last week and looked very, very nice. So great job, Ben.
Thank you, Scott.
Right, thank you. With no other matters at hand, have a good night and see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Night.
All right, what else do we have on the agenda?
Woody, we have two things, and I wonder, just on behalf of Millennium, if the board might want to consider taking them out of order, because one is administrative internal stuff and the other relates to 68 Green Street.
Okay,
If
So you-
people want to do that, just to,
so we'll go to old business is what you're saying. So 68 Green Street, Grain Properties. Request for determination for project completion and approval of approval of record plan, excuse me. And request for release of performance funds for Farmview Lane, currently 35,000 is being held. Is TJ with us?
I am. Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. We were in front of the board a couple weeks ago, and Kristen had suggested a site walk. So last week, Kristen, Daniel, Joe, and I walked the property. We reviewed some of the items that were listed by the Conservation Commission as items that they wanted to see finished up. Since that time that we were out there, they did add some additional seeding to some of the areas along the top of the slope that were a little bare. They have removed the erosion control and started removing some of the old farm road remnants that were found kind of outside the limit of work line as requested by conservation. We also looked at the riprap for the outlet of the constructed wetland. It was noted that it wasn't in place. And walking it with Joe, there's definitely riprap there. It was kind of grown over a little bit, and we didn't want to pull it apart and kind of cause a disturbance. But there's definitely stone there. We did agree to add a little bit more on top. That has not been completed yet, which is why we actually continued with the commission last night, as that was the only outstanding item in front of them. We did receive a peer review letter from Joe yesterday. He asked for 2 minor revisions to the plan, just calling out inverts for 2 of the pipes. And I believe, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he agreed to about, I think it was $3,000 for the bond to be reduced down to 3,000, just to ensure the final growth of the seeding along that area and the installation of that riprap.
yeah, I would just add, related to that, there were 2 contributions to the performance covenant. One was 30,000 and one was 5,000. So I guess I would just offer that if the board is interested in taking Joe's recommendation and retaining some of the performance funds, it would be administratively quite a bit easier to return the 30,000, keep the 5,000 if that was of interest. But either one, we can do whatever makes sense following the discussion.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or motions this time? From the board?
Actually, I'm a little bit confused, Kristen. You're holding 30,000 and 5,000 in different accounts?
Yes, because, I mean, it's probably irrelevant to this discussion, what I just said. That the total being held by the town is 35,000. So, what if any gets retained, we can handle.
So Joe's recommendation is that we release all but 3,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And anyone have a motion? Or any other comments? And entertain a motion.
So I would move then to release $32,000.
Second that.
Okay. Motion made and second. Roll call vote, Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yep.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes. Sorry.
Steve, how do you feel?
I'm good.
And I vote yes as well. So I think that's it. For now, it's gonna be going before conservation, and we'll see you again in the future.
Sorry, I did have one question for the board. I know as part of this,
Sure.
we kind of asked for the final approval. I'm not sure if that was something the board was still considering, or we'd have to come back at some point. Given that the couple items are really just ensuring the landscaping, I just was curious on the board's stance on that part.
Kristen, what's the recommendation here? The final approval?
I think it's up to the board. I agree the outstanding items are related to the Conservation Commission's approval. I think other than those two modifications to the as-built plan that Joe mentioned in his review letter, otherwise in terms of the stormwater infrastructure, the tree planting, everything else that was in the planning board's decision seems in good shape. So so if the board wanted to make a determination of project completion and approval of the record plan today, that would be fine. They'd have to come back for that 3,000 that you just decided to retain. So up to you.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Is there a motion for determination of project completion? And approval? Second?
That was me, so moved.
Yes, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Pete,
Yep, that's fine.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott, Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
Actually, just thinking, am I even able to vote on this?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not
So-
sure. I don't know the answer off the
Yeah,
top of my head.
I don't think so. And that would say, that would also mean I probably shouldn't have voted on the last motion, which was on the reduction. So seeing that we have a quorum, looks like people are all in favor. I don't think my vote actually matters. Right, so if you made another motion on the reduction, I'll just won't vote, and you can do the same on this new motion. Does that sound right, Kristen?
Yeah, why don't you abstain from this vote, which will complete, and then you can revote the
All right.
reduction.
I abstain.
Sounds good, and I vote yes as well. So that is on the release. The determination of the project completion. Now we have to go back to the release of 32,000 performance. Do I have a motion for the release
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that's for the record.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, next thing on the agenda is we're going back now to release of funds from escrow account for engineering review for Newbury Golf Center. Applicant owner Eric Sorensen. Do I have a motion to allow the release of the remaining funds in the engineering review escrow account for the Newbury Golf Center in the amount of $610.20, plus an additional accrued interest back to the Newbury Golf Center?
So move.
Second? Second? Okay, roll call vote. Larry,
Yes.
Pete,
Absolutely.
Barry,
Indeed, yes.
and Scott.
Am I able to vote on this?
I
Okay,
believe so, yes, because it's just the release of funds. It's
gotcha.
has nothing to
Okay.
do with the original
Yes.
decision. And I vote yes as well. So that's done. The next one on the list. Go ahead, Chris.
Just, yeah, these are just administrative votes for anyone listening. These are administrative votes on projects that have been closed out for a while completely, but we're still holding some of the applicants' funds that were received for peer review engineering fees that were not used. So we're just doing some administrative housekeeping.
Yep.
So I think
So
anyone
Steve-
can vote.
Yep, Scott should be
Thanks.
good to vote on this. Okay, the next one on the list is the Governor's Academy. Alfond Coastal Research Center. I'd entertain a motion to allow the release of remaining funds in the engineering review escrow account for the Governor's Academy. Alfond Center. In the amount of $475.20, plus any additional accrued interest. Released back to the Governor's Academy.
You got your motion.
Second,
Second.
okay, I got a motion and second. All those in favor, roll call vote. Peter,
Yes, sir.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes,
and I vote yes as well. And Steve, how do you feel? Forgot about Steve. He's muted, but I think he said yes. Okay, the next one on the list, the Governor's Academy, ACRC pedestrian walkway. I'd entertain a motion to allow the release of the remaining funds in the engineering review escrow account for the Governor's Academy ACRC pedestrian walkway in the amount of $490.93, plus any additional accrued interest to the back to the Governor's Academy.
So moved.
Was that a second, Larry?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
yes,
and Steve, how do you feel?
I'm good with it, thank you.
And I vote yes, chair votes yes as well. And lastly, in the release of funds, 7 Bittersweet Lane Common Driveway applicant, Gage Foley. Identify a motion to allow the release of the remaining funds in the engineering review escrow account for the 7 Bittersweet Common Driveway in the amount of $5.32, plus any additional accrued interest back to Gage Foley. Motion
I would so move.
and a second.
You'd have your second.
Okay, motion and second made. Roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes.
Steve, how do you feel?
Good.
Okay, great, and I vote yes as well. So that gets that out of the way. And
Yeah. There's gonna be some more coming.
there'll be some more coming, so we'll put those on the agenda in the future.
So, Kristen, just a question, you know. On those, is it? Or could it be really an administrative type of an approval with the chair's, approval as well? Just a question, I mean, that's, I mean, these will always be around from now until the end of time, right? And sometimes they show up a year or two out, I mean. Just a question. I mean, it's a question, can we? I'm not sure if the board would even consider this, but just a question on whether or not the board would authorize the chair and the planning director, you know, to take care of this as an administrative function.
I'm happy to explore that. It makes a lot of sense. When the board has already closed the project out, that maybe there's a more streamlined approach. I know, I guess I would want to talk with our treasurer about that procedure. I know this has been the process up until now, is to record, or not record, but to get a certification of vote releasing those funds, and that's submitted with the accounting request. It's a good question. I'm happy to explore it.
Yeah, I mean, if you could explore that, and you could even give authorization and, you know, for anything under $1,000, right? I mean, if you could really do it, you could put some guardrails around it. For the sake of time.
That's a good suggestion, Scott. And Kristen's, I can see her making a note of it, so she'll look into it. We can bring that up on a future agenda. For the authorization of that, if it is possible. Okay, and if there's no other questions or comments, I'll move on to the next thing on the agenda. October 2024 financial report. And I've got that right here. Planning Board Financial Report, October 2024. Payroll and invoices authorized. Number one, payroll warrants for Planning Director and Special Projects Planner. APR 25-7 for pay period ending 10/5/24. B, PR 25-8 for pay period ending 10/19/24. And two, escrow accounts. A, Joe Shawaka. Construction inspections, 105 High Road. 10/7/24. That is our planning report. And meeting minutes. Approval of the October 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. Has everyone here on the board had time to review and read the meeting minutes for October 16th? Are there any edits and modifications? Does anyone have any? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the October 16th meeting minutes.
I move to accept the October 16 meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made, second, roll call vote. Pete,
I'm going to abstain.
abstained. Larry,
I was going to abstain myself, where I missed the meeting.
Mary?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Steve, how do you feel?
Yes.
And as chair, I vote yes as well. All right, meeting minutes taken care of. I'm sure we'll have more in the future to approve. And the last thing I see on the agenda is the planning director's report. Kristen?
I'll keep it brief. Just again, want to extend a welcome to Daniel LaRoe. I don't know if you, Daniel, do you want to say hello and share anything?
I'll just keep it brief and say good evening and looking forward to working with all you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Well,
That's
welcome
brief.
aboard, Daniel.
Hey, Daniel. Hope you like it here.
If things are busy, we're actually both Daniel and I are going out to Springfield early tomorrow morning to attend the Southern New England American Planners Association annual conference, which will be great. I have not attended this before, and it's a good, there's really great workshops on it, a lot of what are relevant to everything we're doing here in Newbury. A lot of resiliency stuff, a lot of housing stuff, zoning, bylaws, suggestions, and recodification, things that are very pertinent. So we will report back to you all about that. Let's see. I guess I'll just say we are kind of moving high speed into the period of time when we should be talking very specifically about zoning amendments for annual town meeting. I just heard today that the date of town meeting has actually been moved up a week. So it's April 22nd, I believe. I'm gonna just, while I'm talking, take a look at that. Yeah, it's Tuesday, April 22nd. It previously was set for the 29th, but had to move up a week. So, so working on the calendar backwards towards the point in time where we need to be having public hearings about zoning amendments. So I think probably next week I'll send around a poll maybe and talk with you, Woody, in between about time when we can gather in person and kind of dive into what the proposed zoning amendments are. Reminder, we will have accessory dwelling unit stuff. We will have floodplain bylaw, which is a part of the zoning bylaw for Newbury. Both of those are being required by the state or federal, as the case may be. And then we have other modifications and amendments that Martha Taylor is working on gathering up, and we've had several meetings with town council. So I think I'd love to try to schedule that in November. So stay tuned if you're all up for that. And
That would be a
I'll stop
workshop,
there.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to hearing from you on that, so we can set a date for a workshop. All right,
Great.
anything else, Kristen?
No, that's it. Thanks, Woody.
I'd entertain motion to adjourn if no one else has anything to say.
Move to adjourn.
And I have a second. That was a second, Mary. All right, roll call vote. Pete,
Yes, sir.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott, Steve,
Yes.
I say yes, everyone.
Thanks
Most of
a
you already
lot,
moved.
Woody and Kristen. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Kristen.
Welcome.
Sure. Have a
Good
great
night,
night, folks.
everybody.
And great job, Woody.